You've made a fool of me. But broken dreams must come to an end. Hey, woman, you've got the blues because you've got no one else to use. I pressed a button on the radio, switching to one of those late-night talk shows that talk about Bigfoot or UFO encounters. I had heard the same song repeatedly over the past few hours, and I was tired of listening to it. Why, you might ask? It's simple. It reminded me too much of the woman I left. I take that back. I didn't walk away, I ran away. Let me start at the beginning. My name is Stan Shipman, and I've been married to Lucy, formerly Lucy Dalton, for 5 years. We had a crush on each other back in high school, and I thought we were soulmates. We got married right out of high school? Yeah, big mistake, I know. But we were so in love with each other that we thought it would work out. God, I was wrong. Money wasn't an issue. I'm a welder by trade, been doing it since I was a kid. My father was a welder, and he taught me everything I needed to know. I've been joining metal since I was big enough to safely handle a welder. As a kid, I always wanted to join my dad on a construction site, but I couldn't. Union rules and insurance regulations prevented it. But my dad did home manufacturing, and he would always let me do something. It was a great experience for me, and I loved doing it. After high school, I went to learn to be a welder, but I got bored with the classes since I already knew all that shit, so I took the exam and blew all the instructors away. I got my certificate and went straight to work. Since I already had a lot of experience and could not only weld, but fabricate and fit parts, I got paid good money, especially when I had to travel to big jobs out of state. I even did some underwater welding and made a lot of money doing it. I made enough so Lucy could go to college, and now she's a paralegal working at some cool law firm downtown. So why am I running? And why am I now on the freeway in the middle of the night? The answer is the two-legged creature I married and her evil friend. Oh yes, Lucy was so sweet and bright when we were younger. But things can change, and they did. Don't get me wrong. I loved this woman and was more than happy to pay for her college. Her parents were sure I would have to go into debt up to my eyeballs to make it happen. But they grossly underestimated me. On her graduation day, they were just as proud of me as they were of her. In fact, thanks to me, she graduated without a dime of student debt. But it all went downhill after she started working at the law firm of McMaster and Fredericks. Things were fine for the first couple months, but they got worse as time went on. To begin with, some of her female co-workers, if nothing else, were a bad influence on her. Lucy started going to hen parties with them once a week, usually on Wednesday nights. I didn't mind at first, since she usually got home early enough for us to enjoy the evening together, and I was often at the construction site busting my ass. But eventually she started going out on Wednesday and Friday nights. It pissed me off that we usually had date night on Fridays. When I reminded Lucy of this, she replied, "We can always go out on Saturdays." I deserved that time with my friends. Then she started staying out longer and longer. It got to the point where she wasn't home until early Saturday morning. If I tried to call her number to see if she was okay, the call always went to voicemail. Finally, I got fed up, so I sat her down at the table to talk about it. "We need to talk," I said one Saturday morning over a cup of coffee. "About what?" she asked. "About your Friday night parties," I said. "Friday used to be our date day. But lately you've been partying until almost 4 in the morning on Saturdays. What the hell is going on? I hardly ever see you." "The girls from the office and I like to go out and relax with a few drinks," she said. "And sometimes we dance. That's about it." "I know these clubs usually close no later than 1 o'clock in the morning," I told her. "But you were there much later. What's going on? Are you seeing someone else?" "Of course not," she replied with a heavy sigh. "If you really want to know, we go out to eat sometimes." "Yeah, but before 4 in the morning?" I asked. "Sometimes," Lucy said. "Well, this shit needs to stop," I told her. "You have to make a decision. You're either my wife or their friend. They already see you more often than I do. I don't mind one night with the girls, but I feel like you're taking advantage of me." "I'm sorry," she said. "If you want, I'll stop seeing girls on Fridays." "I think that's a good idea," I said. "That way we can spend time together." She nodded her head in agreement and went to take a shower. I took the opportunity to get her phone out of her purse and installed a phone finder app to keep track of where she was. Partly I hated to do it, but I felt I had to do it, just for my own peace of mind. Things were fine for a few weeks, but Lucy fell back into her old habits, and soon she was back to leaving the house on Wednesday and Friday nights. I needed to find out what the hell was going on, so I fired up my phone lookup app and figured out where she was. After coming home from work that Friday, I cleaned up a bit and then headed to the club where she and her friends were. It wasn't really a club, more like a bar with a DJ and a dance floor. I walked in and noticed her right away. She was sitting with a group of 4 women and 3 men. I noticed that Lucy was chatting quite nicely with one guy sitting next to her. Even too much so, if you know what I mean. They were completely oblivious to my presence until I was right at their table. Everyone but Lucy looked at me, and the guy next to her spoke up. "What do you want?" he asked, giving me a look like he was going to kick my ass. "I just got home from work and decided to grab a beer," I said, causing Lucy to look at me in surprise. So I walk into this bar and look what I found. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your friends?" Lucy looked around nervously. She was clearly embarrassed. "Everyone," she said. "This is Stan. He's my husband," she added finally. "Stan, this is everyone." "Well, hello, everyone," I said sarcastically. I saw that she wasn't wearing a wedding or engagement ring. "You didn't happen to forget anything, did you?" She saw me looking at her left hand. "I took the rings off so I wouldn't lose them," she said. Bullshit, I thought to myself, but I decided not to insist. "I see," I said. The guy next to her stood up and stuck out his chest. He held out his hand and I took it. "Jake," he said. "Jake Rollins. Lucy and I work together." "A lot," he added with a smirk. The rest of us chuckled a little, except Lucy. He squeezed my hand in a vain attempt to intimidate me and assert himself as the alpha male. It didn't work, so I squeezed it back and squeezed his soft, feminine hand in mine as hard as I could. I could see he was in pain, so I let go. "I was just about to ask your wife to dance, if you don't mind," he said, rubbing his hand. I looked at Lucy. "Is that true?" I asked her. She looked at me and slowly nodded her head. I figured this was a chance to find out what was really going on, so I nodded my head and gave him permission. "Yes," I said. "Just watch your hands. And know that this is my wife, and I'll be watching you." He nodded his head as Lucy rose from her seat. After she stood up, I sat down in the seat Jake had previously occupied and ordered a beer. Most of the others had already left for an unknown destination. "You don't own it, you know," the girl next to me said as I waited for my beer. "What about you?" I asked. "Marie," she replied. "Marie Compton. I've been mentoring Lucy a little bit. You know, show her how to do things and stuff." "So Marie Compton," I said, teasing the way she and Jake introduced themselves to each other. "Who are you that I need to get marriage advice from?" "I'm Lucy's friend, and like I said, I'm mentoring her," she said, taking a sip of her drink. "The partners like her work, and they have big plans for her." I didn't like her smug attitude and wondered what kind of nonsense she was feeding Lucy. "All right, Marie," I said. "I never said Lucy belongs to me, but I am her husband. If something happens that interferes with our marriage, I need to know about it." "Truth be told, Stan, Lucy needs to expand her horizons a bit," Marie said. "All she's ever known is college and you. She needs to, spread her wings a little." "Expand her horizons and spread her wings, huh?" I asked. "Anything else she needs to spread?" "No need to be rude," Marie said. "But now that you mention it, yes, there are probably other things she needs to experience." "Of course, you'll only benefit in the long run." "Huh?" "How?" I asked. "Well, maybe she'll learn something she can bring home to you," Marie said with a smile. "After all, you probably pick up a part-time job when you go out to earn money, don't you?" "No, Marie, I don't," I said. "I go to work my ass off, give my best, get paid, and then come home. I love Lucy, and I would never do anything to hurt her or jeopardize my marriage." "Maybe you're the one who needs to broaden your horizons a bit," she said with a smirk. "I take my wedding vows very seriously," I said. "And I believe Lucy will do the same. I don't see a ring on your finger. Have you ever been married?" "A couple times, actually," she replied. "Let me guess. Your husbands caught you cheating, didn't they?" I asked. She shrugged her shoulders. Yeah, so? She said. I don't belong to anyone. I do what I want to do, with who I want to do it with. Well, Lucy's busy and I expect you to respect that, I said. She chuckled. Yeah, you'll keep thinking that, she said. By then, Jake and Lucy had returned from the dance floor. I stood up so Lucy could sit between me and Marie. I sat down, not letting Jake sit next to her. He didn't look too happy, but I didn't care. So Lucy tells me you're a welder, Jake said. And how much do welders make now? $15 an hour? Actually, I make more like $35 an hour, I said. More if you have to work underwater. Didn't Lucy tell you I paid for her college tuition? So you're paying her student loans? He asked. No, she doesn't have a loan because I paid her tuition, I told him. I also bought this new Toyota for her. Damn, I didn't know welders made that much money, he said. I'm in the wrong business. I bet you get a lot of women on the side when you go out of town, huh? He asked, nudging me with his elbow. No, I work when I'm out of town, I said. I usually work 16 hours a day when I'm at the construction site. Like I told Marie, I take my wedding vows very seriously. I'm sure you do, Jake said smugly. I didn't like the direction this was going, and these people were starting to piss me the hell off. I turned to my wife. Did you drive here today? I asked her. Yes, she replied. Good, I told her. Because I've had enough fun to stand here today. I'm on my way home. I expect to see you by my side. I started to get up and accidentally knocked over a nearly full ice-cold beer onto Jake's lap, getting the crotch of his khaki pants dirty. Oops, I said. Sorry about that. I think you'd better go home and change your pants. He jumped up, furious, and looked like he was about to take a swing. You better do it, buddy, I told him. He saw the look in my eyes and backed off. Smart move, I told him. I turned to my wife again. Are you coming? I'm right behind you, she said quietly. I noticed Marie's eyes on me. Believe me, if looks could kill, I'd probably be dead by now. I walked out the door without looking back. Lucy pulled into the driveway a few minutes after me. Good for her, I thought. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and waited for her in the living room. She barged in, her face red. What the hell was that? She demanded. You embarrassed the hell out of me. Did I embarrass you? I asked rhetorically. Are you following me or something? She asked. I shook my head. No, actually, I just wanted to grab a beer and was surprised to see you there with some friends from work, I said, realizing I had just lied to her for the first time since I had met you. If anyone had any reason to be embarrassed, it was me. Imagine what went through my head when I saw my wife, the love of my life and best friend in the world, sitting there with some woman. And imagine how I felt when I saw you take off your wedding ring. Like you were embarrassed to admit you were married to me. Right? Her face softened and she took a seat next to me. Of course not, she said. It's just that I have to work with these people, and Jake is the lawyer I work with the most. And Marie? I asked. What's her role? She's above me on the food chain, Lucy said. She mentors me, shows me how to work. Does that include spousal advice? I asked. What do you mean? She asked. Well, while you and Jake were dancing, she said a bunch of stuff to me about how you need to expand your horizons and spread your wings, I said. Be honest with me. Have you been cheating on me? No, I haven't, she said, lowering her gaze. For some reason, she couldn't look me in the eye. Was she really lying to me? I hope not. Because you know that's one thing I can never forgive, I told her. Well, Marie said you might get some while you're gone, Lucy said. Do you? No, I told her. We've known each other probably since 6th grade. Have you ever known me to be unfaithful to you? She shook her head. No, she said quietly. I've never cheated on you and I'm not going to, I said. I love you too much to disrespect and hurt you like this. Besides, when I'm not here, I'm too busy working. I wasn't kidding when I told Jake that I often work 16 hours a day. I know, she said. I've seen your payroll. Here you go, I told her. What do you think you went to college on? Bought yourself a new car, dressed in nice clothes all this time? And that's on top of paying our regular bills. You know, I've been saving up to make a nice down payment on a house. So you can tell Marie to shove her bullshit up her ass and shut the hell up about things she knows nothing about. You didn't really care for her, did you? Asked Lucy. No, not at all, I said. I don't like the shit she feeds you. It's the same with Jake. I don't trust either of them. Did you know she's been divorced twice? For cheating? Lucy looked at me, shocked. How do you know that? She asked. She told me, I replied, and seemed awfully proud of it. I have a feeling those two are up to something and intend to bring you down with them. You haven't done anything wrong, have you? No, Stan, I haven't, she said. It's just... Just what? I asked. I like going out with them, she told me. Well, I like meeting you too, I told her. Do you think you could start spending time with your husband? Sure, she said as she put her arms around my neck. I'm sorry. It's okay, I told her. You know I've only wanted 3 things in life. Which is what? She asked. First, to be married to you, I said. 2, to be the best welder around, and 3, to have a family with you. She smiled, snuggling closer to me. Well, you've got the first 2 items, she said. Do you want to work on the third? It was my turn to smile. Let's go, I said. We ran to the bedroom and spent the rest of the night making love. Things seemed to calm down for another couple months. Lucy stayed home on Fridays and I tried to be more attentive and loving. I purposely didn't mention Marie or Jake anymore because I believed Lucy would do the right thing. And then it happened. I came home one Friday night and found the house dark, with only a few candles burning on the dining room table. The smell of lasagna wafted from the kitchen, and I figured Lucy had cooked something special. I made my way into the dining room and saw that our best china was on the table. Turning around, I saw her, my beautiful wife. Do you like what you see? She asked. I nodded my head. I'm glad, she said. Tonight is going to be special. Why? I asked. It's a surprise, she said. Go get cleaned up and then sit down while I make dinner. I went into the bedroom and cleaned myself up, changing into my work clothes. By the time I had washed up and returned to the dining room, Lucy had already served the lasagna and even poured us each a glass of wine. I loved Lucy's cooking, and I especially liked her lasagna, which was always covered in cheese and filled with meat and mushrooms. I don't even know what's more tempting, you or the lasagna, I said, sitting down at the table. She giggled, sitting down. Well, I hope you enjoy both tonight, she said with a smile. I dug into my lasagna, and it was delicious as always. Once I was done with everything, I found myself feeling a little weird. I tried to stand up, but I felt so dizzy that I almost fell over. I looked at Lucy in confusion. What had she done? I asked myself. I tried to speak, but it was proving very difficult. What? I started, but the next moment I fell to the floor. When I finally came to my senses, I found myself tied to a chair in our bedroom. My hands were strapped to the arms of the chair, and my feet were strapped to my legs. What the hell was that? I asked myself. I got angry and screamed. Lucy, I shouted. What the hell is going on? A few minutes later, Lucy walked into the bedroom, but she wasn't alone. Marie was with her. What the hell is this shit? I asked. Get me the hell out of this chair. Now. I'm sorry, honey, Lucy said. Marie said it was better this way. Better for what? I demanded. So you can see your wife expand her horizons, Marie said calmly. Was it your idea to tie her to this chair? I asked. Of course it was, Marie replied. And you agreed to this shit? I asked. You know what that means. I'm sorry, Lucy said. But Marie said it was the only way out. Believe me. Please. It won't affect us in any way. I still love you. And I never fantasized. And yes, it does affect us. I told you I wouldn't tolerate cheating. And what the hell is that thing you put on me? I asked her. I swear to God, I said to Lucy. I never fantasized about this, and I promise that if you don't untie me from this goddamn chair and get this thing off me right now, we're screwed. Please don't do this, Lucy begged. It's just one night. I'll let you go when we're done. I shook my head. You're not that stupid, Lucy, I told her. Let me go right now. Then 2 men came in and started doing it to my wife. She then let me go, but I immediately got dressed and went to the phone. What are you doing? She asked as I dialed 911. I may be a welder, but I'm not stupid. I knew what she and her accomplices were doing was highly illegal, and I intended to see them in jail that very night. Lucy freaked out when she realized I had just called the police to report a sexual assault with unlawful restraint. I grabbed Lucy's cell phone to stop her from calling Marie. I also grabbed my keys out of her purse to keep her from leaving. She tried to snatch the phone and keys out of my hands, but I managed to wrestle them from her and put them in my pants pocket. Finished talking, I sat down and waited for the cops. I knew they would want to examine me and take fluid samples for evidence. Please don't press charges, Lucy pleaded. I don't want to go to jail. Trust me, this is the safest place for you right now, I said. You can get dressed. The cops will be here any minute. You heard what Jake and Marie said, Lucy told me. They're serious. You don't want to mess with them. Get dressed, I told her. Lucy saw the look on my face and realized it was best not to push me. She quietly got dressed and I felt her cell phone buzzing in her pocket. I pulled it out and saw that Marie had sent a text. Is everything okay? Read Marie's message. Everything's fine, I texted. He's not too happy, but he'll get over it. I sent the message, hoping Marie would succumb to the deception. I put my phone back in my pocket. By the time Lucy walked in the front door, the police had arrived. I opened the door and let them inside. One look at my face was enough to know things were bad. One of the officers took my statement while another officer talked to Lucy in the bedroom. The officer who took my statement called an ambulance and took swabs from my face, placing them in evidence bags. The second officer returned and they conferred at the front door for a few minutes before returning. When they returned, the second officer went into the bedroom and came out of there with Lucy. Her hands were placed behind her back and she was crying. Please don't let them arrest me, she begged. This was just supposed to be fun. I shook my head and turned away from her. By then, 2 more police cars and an ambulance had shown up. A policewoman appeared in the doorway and took Lucy away. The policeman who took my statement said she was under arrest. We'd like to have you checked out at the hospital, he told me. The more evidence against the people who did this, the better. You should probably sign a protective order as well, he told me. He handed me a card with the name of an attorney from the local prosecutor's office and a phone number. I already took the liberty of calling her, and she said she would meet you at the hospital, he told me. I thanked him and headed out with the paramedics, who did a cursory examination on the way to the hospital. In the emergency room, they examined me, took samples of the substance on my face, washed me, and took blood and urine samples. I was given some painkillers that were just beginning to relax me when a well-dressed woman walked into the exam room. Stan Shipman? She asked. I nodded my head. That's me, I said. Mr. Shipman, I'm Linda Calloway, she said. I'm the assistant district attorney assigned your case. How are you feeling? I've been feeling better, I said. A little tired right now. They gave me something to take the pain away. Mr. Shipman, the officers who brought you in informed me of the situation, she said. I have also been informed that the other woman and the 2 men who assaulted you have been taken into custody and are in the county jail awaiting a hearing. I am requesting that they be released on bail, but the reality is they will likely be released on their own recognizance. I'm afraid the company they work for has a lot of influence in the county. That's why I've taken it upon myself to seek a protective order for you. Thank you for that, I said. Do you think it will do any good? She shrugged. I can't say for sure, she said. It might, but there's no guarantee. I nodded my head. I understand, I said. If it's any consolation, they'll be in a cell at least until Monday morning, when their arraignment hearing will take place, she said. After that? I understand, I said. I'm just an ordinary working man with no friends in high places. When it comes to fighting, I'll be alone. You have me, Mr. Shipman, she said with reproach in her voice. As long as you don't do anything stupid. But you might want to hire a divorce lawyer. Unless you plan to stay married to your wife. No, I'm done with her, I said. She nodded her head understandingly. I'm told you're planned to be kept overnight for observation, she said. And that's good, since your apartment is now a crime scene. They'll need time to go through everything and gather evidence. By the way, do you have a gun? I shook my head. No, I don't own one, I told her. Good, she said. Just so you know, we have lock laws in our state, so you can defend yourself in your own home. I'll keep that in mind, I said. The next morning, after I ate breakfast, my parents came in. They sat in silence while I told them everything that had happened. When I finished, my father was furious. What are you going to do, son? He asked. I'm going to divorce that bitch, I told him. He nodded his head approvingly. Good for you, he said. Is there anything we can do? I could use the name of a good divorce lawyer, I said. I know a few, he said. I'll see what I can come up with. Also, I could use a ride home after you're discharged, I said. No problem, my dad said. Just call me when you're ready. In the meantime, get some rest and take it easy. Don't do anything stupid. You know me, I said. Yeah, I do, he said with a smile. That's why I said don't do anything stupid. We all had a good laugh and they left after my mom gave me a hug. A little while later, Lucy's parents came in. We always got along well and they were like second parents to me. I told them about what had happened the night before. They were shocked and embarrassed at what their daughter had done. I take it you're going to file for divorce, her father said. I nodded my head. Yes, I said. I can't live with what she did. I understand, he said. And I'm really sorry. Is there anything we can do? Her mother asked. If Lucy gets out of jail, she's going to need a place to stay, I said. The ADA will get a protective order, so she won't be able to stay in the apartment. She can stay with us, her mother said. Thank you, I told her. We said goodbye and they left. The doctor came in a couple hours later and examined me. He deemed me fit to be discharged, and the nurses began the paperwork. I knew it would take a while, so I called my dad and let him know. My parents returned just as the paperwork was being finalized. After the nurse gave me instructions, she put me in my wheelchair and took me to the loading area where my dad's car was parked. They helped me get in and we drove off. Soon we pulled up to the apartment. Dad helped me to the door, and we said goodbye again. Remember, he said, if you need anything, just call. Thanks, Dad, I said. I went into the apartment and looked around. The police had gone through everything, and I knew it would take a while to put everything in its proper place. I noticed right away that there was a message on the answering machine. I listened to the message. Dead meat, the message read. Nothing else, no introduction, nothing. I looked and found the number listed as private. Something about the message sounded familiar, so I listened to it a few more times. And then it hit me. It wasn't a person speaking directly into the receiver. I recognized the phrase from one of the old Rocky movies, specifically the Mr. T movie. Whoever had sent the message had recorded it and then played it back over the phone. A few minutes after I guessed this, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw a rather young, attractive brunette standing outside the door. I remembered seeing her at the club when I first met Jake. I looked closely, but I didn't see anyone else with her. A thought flashed through my mind, and I pulled my cell phone out of my shirt pocket. I activated the camera and set it to record, then put it back in my pocket. Then I opened the door but didn't remove the chain. Yes? I asked. Mr. Shipman? She asked quietly. That's me, I said. And you're... Holly Brinkman, she said. I work with your wife. May I come in, please? Are you alone? I asked. Yes, I'm alone, she replied. I closed the door to disconnect the chain and opened it again to let her inside. After she entered, I closed and locked the door. "What can I do for you, Miss Brinkman?" I asked. "Please call me Holly," she said. "Okay, Holly," I said. "Again, how can I help you?" She handed me a manila envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it, please," she said quietly. I opened the folder and looked inside. Seeing a couple pictures, I put the envelope on the coffee table and went to the kitchen where I grabbed a pair of latex gloves. I didn't want to risk getting my fingerprints on anything. When I returned, I pulled out the pictures and was shocked at what I saw. The pictures showed a man who had passed away. "Who is that?" I asked. "It was my husband," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "His name was Brian." "Did you report it?" I asked. She nodded her head. "Yes," she said. "The police ruled it a suicide." "How?" I asked. "You don't understand," she said. "The firm we work for has friends in very high and low circles. They own most of the police force, and several judges are on their payroll as well." "I see," I said. "Did Jake do this?" She shrugged. "I don't know," she said. "Maybe he ordered it." "So why are you still working at the firm?" I asked. "I have no choice," she said. "Let me guess," I said. "You're not just a legal secretary, am I right?" "That's right," she said. "They did to us what Jake and Marie did to you. Only my husband went after Jake, and paid a huge price for it." "So you're really just a whore for the firm, aren't you?" I asked. She nodded her head. "Yes," she said. "My job is to be available to the lawyers and their clients." "What's Marie's role in all this?" I asked. "She's kind of like a madam," Holly said. "She does all of our, assignments." "And she added Lucy to her stable?" I asked. "Yes," she replied. I looked into the envelope and saw something else, a doubled, folded piece of paper. I pulled it out and opened it. It was a note, but the letters looked like they had been cut out of magazines and newspapers and glued to the paper. Talk about smut. I almost laughed, but suppressed the impulse. "Stan Shipman," the note began. "Stand back or it could be you," the note read. I looked at Holly. "Did you read that?" I asked her. She shook her head. "No," she said. "It was dropped off at my apartment this morning with a note for me to deliver it to this address." "Are you ready to tell the district attorney about this?" I asked. She shook her head. "No," she said. "I'd like to go on with my life if you don't mind. You have no idea how mean these people are, especially Marie." "How many people in your firm know about all this?" I asked. "Pretty much everyone above middle management," she replied. I nodded my head. "Figuratively," I said. "Okay, Holly, thanks for telling me about it." "I'm really sorry about that," she said. "You seem like a really great guy. Lucy's lucky to have you." "Thanks for saying that, Holly," I said. "Have a good day," I added as I opened the door in front of her. I watched her leave and made sure no one else was around. I closed and locked the door. That and the voicemail changed the situation dramatically. I still intended to divorce Lucy, but these threats took things to a new level. I finished watching the video and called Linda. Luckily, she had written her personal phone number on the back of her business card. "This is Linda Calloway," she said when she answered. I told her about the voicemail and the envelope that had just been delivered. "That changes everything," she said. "Okay, I want you to bring it to me right now." She gave me her address and ended the conversation. At that moment, I decided I needed to get out of this Dodge for a while. I packed enough stuff to last me a few days and threw it in the back seat of my F-150. Another thought occurred to me. I grabbed the thing Lucy had used on me the previous night. It too had gone in the truck. I had an idea and I wanted to put it into action a little. After putting some basic welding tools in the truck, I called my boss to let him know what was going on and ask for time off, which he quickly granted me. "The job is done and you're going to have a bunch of vacation time anyway, so take whatever time you need and deal with it," he said. Thanks, boss, I said. I checked everything one more time, locked the door, and walked out. I made it to Linda's apartment in less than 30 minutes. She was shocked when she saw the pictures and the note. I also have a videotape of a conversation with the woman who brought this, I said. It's very enlightening. Let me see it, she said. I pulled out my phone and played her the video. Oh my God, she sighed when the video ended. That explains a lot. Could you give me a copy of this? I handed her my phone so she could do what she needed to do. When she was done, she handed the phone back. It was then that I realized that Lucy's phone was still in my pocket. I pulled it out and held it out to her. What's this? Asked Linda. It's Lucy's phone, I said. I put it in my pocket the night Jake attacked me. I completely forgot about it until now. Maybe you can find something in there. I'll have our guys take a look, she said. Then she leaned back in her chair. On second thought, maybe I should contact the state or federal authorities. If what Holly said is true, I can't even trust our own police department. She looked up at me before continuing. What are you going to do? I'm going to leave town for a while, I said. She nodded her head. What about custody? Maybe we should put you in the witness protection program, she said. Yeah, sure, I said. Then Jake and his cronies will know exactly where I am. No thanks. Okay, she said. Just let me know where you are, okay? Okay, I said. I headed for the exit, not knowing where to go. All I knew was that I needed to get away from this shit for a while. I stopped at the bank, withdrew as much cash as I could, and drove on, constantly watching for cars that might be following me. All I could think about were pictures of that poor guy who got killed for not wanting to be Jake and Marie's cuckold. I knew that if I wasn't careful, it would happen to me. It was late in the afternoon when it finally got to me. I stopped at a bus stop and made a phone call. I hoped it wasn't too late, and thankfully it wasn't. Yes, said the gruff voice on the other end of the line. Dave, it's me, Stan, I said. Dave was an old friend of mine. We'd worked different jobs together and got along pretty well. Stan, you old son of a bitch, he said. What the hell is going on, man? I got a little problem and I was wondering if I could come over to your place for a couple days, I said. Sure, buddy, he said. You can come over. Just do me a favor and grab a couple of six-packs if you don't mind. No problem, buddy, I said. I'll see you in a few hours. See ya, he said and ended the conversation. Feeling better, I pulled onto the freeway and headed north. Along the way, I spotted a convenience store, stopped and bought a couple of six-packs of beer, as well as a styrofoam stall and ice to keep it cold. I also heated up my coffee and decided to pick up a couple packs of cigarettes. I didn't normally smoke in the apartment, but I knew Dave smoked and thought he would appreciate the gesture. After all, he'd let me stay with him for a while, so I considered myself indebted, at least to him. Dave Brolin was about 15 years older than me and worked with my father. That's how we met. He stayed with us several times when he worked in our neighborhood and was something of a big brother to me. I learned a lot from him working in my father's shop. He had a hard time growing up. His father worked in the shipyards and eventually died of complications from mesothelioma, thanks to the asbestos he was constantly exposed to. After his father died, his younger sister Beverly stayed home and looked after their mother until she died about a year ago from stomach cancer. I knew Bev for quite a while. She was an unprincipled girl, attractive in her own way. Of course, I never made a move on her, partly because of Dave's friendship with me and my father, but mostly because I was already in love with Lucy. Bev and I got along fine and were more like siblings, teasing each other about one thing or another. I hadn't seen her in a while and I was curious to see what she was like now. Like me, Dave married young, but ended up divorced when he came home and found his wife with one of her co-workers. He never remarried, but he does go out from time to time. Most of his time is spent caring for Beverly, who now lives with him. Beverly, of course, says she looks after him. I pulled up to Dave's two-story log house around 2:30 a.m., grabbed my stuff and ice chest, and met Dave on the porch. Hope you have some beer for us, he said with a smile. Taking the pack of cigarettes I offered him, he opened the door and helped me carry the rest of my stuff into the house. I carried the ice chest into the kitchen and saw a gorgeous blonde woman in a long t-shirt and short pajama pants come down the stairs. Who's that blonde bombshell? I asked Dave. He laughed. You know who I am, dumbass, the blonde replied. I shifted my gaze to her and realized it was Beverly. She looked nothing like the gangly teenage girl I remembered. Beverly? I asked in confusion. Is that really you? You know it is, asshole, she said wryly. Why are you here so damn early in the morning? Did Lucy catch you cheating and kick you out of the house or something? No, not exactly, I said with a note of annoyance in my voice. Bev's face softened as she understood me. I'm sorry, Stan, she said, looking at my bruise-covered face. What happened? Are you okay? Not really, I said. That's why I'm here. Why don't you grab a beer and explain things to us, said Dave. I nodded my head, grabbed 3 beers, and headed for the front room. I handed one to Dave and then turned to Beverly. Are you sure you're old enough to drink? I asked her sarcastically. She smiled, raising her middle finger and snatching the beer from my hands. Spill it, she said. What's going on between you two? It's pretty awkward, I said. So, said Beverly. We're adults and damn close to family, so spill it. Okay, I said before telling them the whole story about Lucy, Marie, and Jake. I showed them the video of my brief encounter with Holly. They sat stunned into silence when I finished. Shit, Dave said, taking a sip of his beer. Do you think they know where you are now? I don't think so, I told him. At any rate, I haven't seen any cars following me. Well, luckily we're at the top of the hill and can see anyone heading this way. And I still have the gun I bought from your father after Mikey's accident. You still remember how to shoot, don't you? I nodded my head. Yeah, but I haven't touched a gun since it happened, I said. My younger brother, Michael, or Mikey as everyone called him, had accidentally shot himself in the leg years ago with my father's .22 caliber pistol. Mikey suffered only a minor flesh wound and recovered, but my father was so upset about it that he got rid of all his guns and never changed them. It's all right, Dave said. I'll take you to the backyard and let you familiarize yourself with them. Bev can work with you too. She's become quite a marksman. I looked at Beverly in surprise. She perked up slightly and smiled slyly. Does your dad know you're here? Asked Dave. I shook my head. No, I said. I haven't told anyone where I am. But I have to let the ADA know. You have to remember that I didn't even think about coming here until I was already gone. Okay, he said. I'll call your parents and let them know this morning as soon as the sun comes up. Don't use your cell phone if you can help it. In fact, it might be a good idea to turn the phone off and take the battery out of it, in case it has some kind of beacon on it. Good idea, I said, turning the phone off. I unplugged the back cover and took out the battery. So Lucy and her friends are going to appear before a judge on Monday? Asked Beverly. Yes, the arraignment will be on Monday, I said. The prosecutor is hoping the judge will keep them without bail, but after what I heard from Holly, I'm not sure that's going to happen. Well, you can stay here as long as you need to, Dave said. I have to go to work in a week, Monday, and I'll be gone for a week, but if you need to hang around, that's fine. How long are you planning to vacation? I was planning on 2 weeks, I said. Hopefully everything will be settled by then. Like I said, you can stay here, Dave said. Thanks, I appreciate it, I said. If there's anything I can do to help, let me know. Dave looked at Beverly, then smiled. I'm sure Bev can think of a couple things, Dave told me. But you're a guest here, and your ancestors always treated us like royalty. So as far as I'm concerned, you can relax and enjoy the country air. Well, guys, it's been fun, but I have to get up and make breakfast in a few hours, Beverly said as she stood up. I hope you like scrambled eggs and hash browns because that's what I make, she added, looking at me. Breakfast of champions, I told her. Sounds great to me. She waved her hand and headed upstairs. After hearing her bedroom door close, Dave and I went outside for a cigarette and a chat. What's the story with her? I asked. I thought she was already married and raising kids. Well, she never met anyone she really cared about, Dave said. She dated a few guys, but according to her, they just didn't fit. Didn't fit? With what? I asked. He looked at me seriously. With you, nitwit, he said. She's always had a crush on you. No way, I said, shocked. Absolutely, he said. The only reason she never told you was because of Lucy. She didn't want to be the reason you broke up. Are you serious? I asked. Like a heart attack, he said. What makes you think she's still in love with me? I asked. I sometimes hear her after she goes to bed, Dave said. She has a dildo named Little Stan, and I've heard her use it several times. I've heard her call your name more than once. That's too much information, I said. Dave smiled and took a sip of his beer. Well, it is what it is, he said. So when did Beverly turn into a babe? I asked. She's always been a pretty girl, Dave told me. She just never flaunted it. Besides, you only had eyes for Lucy, remember? Yeah, I remember, I said. Look, between you and me, I'd be more than okay with you two being together, he said. Just do me a favor, okay? What kind? I asked. Don't break her heart, he said. I love my sister, and I think you do too if you think about it. I just don't want her to get her hopes up and then see you and Lucy make up. It would destroy her. I shook my head. I'm done with Lucy, I said. Good, he said. Well, I'd better go to bed. I'll see you in the morning. He got up, tossed his cigarette in the can, and headed upstairs. I finished my cigarette and headed to bed a few minutes later. I fell asleep as soon as my head touched the pillow. I woke up later when Beverly opened the door and called out to me, "Rise and shine!" I wiped my eyes from sleep and noticed it was 8:30. I went into the bathroom and did my morning routine, then took a quick shower, got dressed, and went downstairs. After getting dressed, I looked at the ring on my finger and took it off, tossing it on the dresser. As I came downstairs, I saw Beverly in the kitchen making breakfast. She was just adorable, and I wondered why I hadn't seen her before. Smells good, I said. She smiled. I'm glad you think so, cowboy, she said. The coffee's ready if you want it. Do you still like butter pecan creamer? Of course I do, I said. Do you have some? Oh yeah, she said. It's in the fridge. Help yourself to some. Just save some for Dave and me. I poured a cup of coffee and added some cream. I love Southern butter pecan thanks to my dad. Dave had gotten hooked on it when my dad brought some to the construction site. Have a seat, she told me with a smile. I'll be right with you. I sat down at the table where Dave was already sitting, reading the Sunday paper. Good morning, I said. He looked at me over the top of the paper. Good morning, he said back. Anything interesting in the news? I asked. Yeah, there's an article in the paper about some fancy lawyer getting arrested on various charges, he said. Take a look, he added, holding out the article to me. There were no names or details in the article. It was boilerplate news that meant nothing to those who didn't know the whole story. I hummed and held the paper back out. By then, Bev had finished making breakfast and was wheeling it on a cart to the table. Very tasty, I said, taking a big bite. Thank you, kind sir, Beverly replied with a smile. I'm glad you approve. We finished breakfast and Dave stood up, putting his plate away. I need to go into town and get some things, he said. I'll be gone for at least a couple hours. If you need to call the DA, you can use the house phone. Thanks, I said. Beverly handed him the list of things she needed, and he slipped it into his pocket. He took his keys and headed for the exit. I looked at Beverly. Do you need help putting the dishes away? I asked. I don't necessarily need any, but I'd appreciate it, she replied. Thanks for asking. I got up and helped her clear the table. She tossed me a towel and started washing the dishes that were already in the sink. I see you're not wearing a ring, she said as she washed a plate. Are you really going to divorce her? Yes, I said. I told her I won't tolerate cheating, and I mean it. Good, she said with a slight smile. Glad to see you still have balls. What's your story? I asked. How are you doing? She shrugged. Okay, I guess, she said. Is there anyone special in your life? I asked. There was once, she said, but he was taken away. Besides, I couldn't have a relationship anyway. Too busy taking care of my parents. That's what I heard, I said. Yeah, but it had to be done, she said. After my dad died, my mom needed my help. I worked as a waitress to bring in some money, since all she had was Dad's 401k and a little Social Security. I worked until she got sick so I could do something, and then I stayed home and took care of her full time. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. Don't be, she said. I don't regret staying home with her. I just hope that when I'm her age, someone will be there to help me. So what happened? I asked. There wasn't much left over after Mom died, she said. We had to sell the house and a lot of her stuff. With what was left of Dad's pension and 401k, we were able to pay for all of her last expenses. There wasn't much left, and Dave let me take them since I was taking care of her. He promised Mom that he would let me stay here with him, and I've been here ever since. Dave offered to pay for my college tuition, but I refused. Why? I asked. I don't want to be beholden to anyone, she said. I want to succeed on my own if I can. That's why I'm staying here and working at the McDonald's in town. I earn enough to cover my expenses, and I'm taking some business courses in the evenings. Good for you, I said. Yeah, but Dave has an idea to start his own fabric business, and he mentioned that I'd be doing the bookkeeping and stuff, she said. Is he still talking about it? I asked. Yes, she replied. He does a lot of one-off things for the locals. Custom grills, trailers, that sort of thing. Gets good money for it. His dream is to stay home and work in his workshop in the backyard. Maybe he can show it to you while you're here. That would be great, I said. We fell silent, and I found myself admiring her. For the first time, I realized how beautiful she really was, and not just in appearance. Before she said anything, she looked at me. What are you looking at? She asked. I think I'm looking at the most beautiful woman I've ever met, I told her. I thought I saw a tear appear in her eye. Stop teasing me, she said quietly, looking down. I'm not teasing, I said. I can't help but admire you. You put your life on hold for your parents, refused to accept Dave's offer to put you through college, and now you're working on your own. I'm just sorry I didn't see it sooner. Well, you were blindsided by Lucy, so I can't take offense at you, she said. Yeah, you're probably right, I said. After she had rinsed all the dishes, she ran the water down the sink, wiped her hands, and turned to me. She used you, you know, Bev said. I think you're right, I said. Of course I'm right, she said. I saw right through her years ago. Why didn't you say anything? I asked. You wouldn't have believed me, she said. I realized she was probably right. Hell, she couldn't have done wrong in your eyes. She had her little fingers so tight around you, you'd do anything for her. All I wanted was for her to be happy, I said. And look where that got her, she remarked rhetorically. She got a degree, a new car, all sorts of trinkets and clothes, all at your expense. And when she didn't need you anymore, she traded you in for a new model. I'm glad she's in jail because if she were here now, I don't know what I'd do. I believe you would, I said. I just want to know one thing, she said, putting her hands on her hips. What's that? I asked. Are you going to give in to her tears and take her back? She asked. I shook my head. No, I said. That ship has sailed. It's not going to happen after Friday. Good, she said. And if you ever have any doubts, remember this. We made love. We'd better get cleaned up before Dave gets back, she said. I've got some meat to put out for tonight, so why don't you run down and take a quick shower, okay? I'll be up in a bit. Okay, I said. What's up with the meat? We like to barbecue on Sundays, weather permitting, she said. You like venison, don't you? Yes, I love venison, I said. But I haven't eaten it in years. Good, she said. I shot it myself with a .50 caliber, Dave's flintlock. Even dressed it in the field with my own hands. God, you're just a woman, I said. A rugged woman in the wilderness. I'm really impressed. I had seen Dave's flintlock and knew it had to be at least 49 inches long. Did you load it yourself? I asked her. Of course, she replied. A patched round ball with 100 grams of double F powder. Even molded the bullet myself. Damn, I said. You like fishing too? She smiled. I love fishing, she said. I even bait my own hooks and clean the fish myself. Is there anything you haven't done yet? I asked sarcastically. I haven't rebuilt the gearbox in Dave's truck yet, she replied. However, I did help him rebuild the engine. I'm definitely in love. No time for that now, she said. Wait until tonight when we go to bed. By the way, you'll be sleeping with me now. My bed is much bigger than the one in your room. Won't Dave be upset? I asked. No, she replied. Besides, we're both consenting adults. I need to call the DA and let her know where I am, I said. Bev pointed to the cordless phone in the cradle. Go ahead and use that phone, she said. I picked up the receiver and called, almost forgetting that it was a long-distance phone. Linda picked up after the second ring. Linda Calloway, she said. Linda, this is Stan Shipman, I said. I called to let you know where I am. Stan, thank God you called, she said. I was starting to get worried. I see you're calling long distance. Where are you? I'm at an old family friend's house, I said. I turned off my cell phone just to be safe. Good, she said. I'll keep you updated as much as possible. I've already heard from the feds. It seems they're looking into the firm your wife works for. By the way, I took the liberty of talking to an old friend of mine who happens to be the best divorce attorney around. I hope you don't mind. No, I don't mind, I said. Good, Linda said. She's expecting a call from you tomorrow. I told her a little about your situation. If anyone can handle it, she can. Thanks, I said. I will. Linda gave me the information I needed and promised to let me know how it went at the hearing before we ended the conversation. By then, Dave had returned, and I went out to help him drop off what he'd bought. By the way, he said when we were done, I called your folks. They were really worried about you. I told them you'd be staying with us for a while. Thank you, I told him. That night, we barbecued some meat and enjoyed dinner on the patio. After dinner, we all set about cleaning up. Dave and I grabbed a beer each and went for a smoke while Beverly finished the job. Bev said you're going to sleep in her room, Dave said. Is that for how long? I felt a little awkward discussing this with him. After all, she was his sister. I think so, I said. You think? He asked. Yes, I do, I said. I just need to get a divorce soon. Do you love her? He asked. Yes, I do, I said. Good, he said. You should pull your head out of your ass a long time ago, he added with a smile. Look, Bev is a big girl and can make her own decisions. She can definitely take care of herself. I just don't want her to get hurt, that's all. I would never hurt her, I said. I'm glad to hear that, he said. Welcome to our family, he added, holding out his hand. I took it, and we shook hands heartily. Just don't keep me up all night, okay? I laughed, nodding my head. I'll try, I said. That night, after Bev and I made love in her bed, I pulled her against me and thought about our possible future together. In that moment, I felt more content than I had in a long time. What are you thinking about? She asked quietly. About the future, I replied. Huh? She asked. Yes, I said. I mean, what do you want out of life? Where do you see yourself in, say, 5 or 10 years from now? I know it's popular among women right now to want to break through the glass ceiling and reach for the brass rings, she said. But I'm not like that. I don't aspire to a career or anything like that. All I want is a faithful husband who loves me as much as I love him and a family to take care of. That's it. What about your classes? I asked. That's mostly for Dave, she said. When he starts his own business, he's going to need help. What about you? What do you want out of life? I guess I'm a lot like you, I said. All I really want is a faithful wife who loves me as much as I love her and a family of my own. I thought I had that with Lucy, but it didn't work out. What about your job? She asked. I like what I do for a living, I said. Sometimes it takes me away for a couple weeks. Can you handle that? She laughed. Please, she said. My brother's a welder like you, remember? I know what to expect. I can handle anything as long as I know you'll come home to me. I stared at her for a few moments before saying something. I wish I had met you before I met Lucy, I said. Me too, she said. But what's done is done. We'll get through this together, okay? We're a team, and we can do anything as long as we're together. I'll always be there for you, no matter what happens. I love you so much, I said, kissing her. I love you even more, she said, hugging me. I fell asleep feeling truly loved for the first time in forever. The next day, Beverly got up before everyone else. After making breakfast, she ran upstairs to get ready for work. On the way out, she kissed me, letting me know that after her shift, she had school that evening. I usually get home at 9:30, so you guys will have to manage on your own, she said. Remember, no matter what happens, I love you and I'm here for you. I love you too, I said, returning her kiss. She had no idea how much it meant to hear those words from her. What? Asked Dave. Don't I get a kiss too? He added with a smile. Beverly laughed and gave him a sisterly peck on the cheek. You two try to stay out of trouble, okay? She asked as she walked away. I need to call that divorce lawyer Linda recommended to me, I said, glancing at my watch. Dave pointed to the phone and I picked it up and called. The law office of Bernice Goodwin, answered the friendly female voice on the other end of the line. I introduced myself and asked if Bernice was available, letting the receptionist know she was expecting my call. Miss Goodwin is expecting your call, sir, the woman said. One moment, please. I heard some sort of musical accompaniment in the receiver for a few moments before another woman answered me. Bernice Goodwin, the woman said. How can I help you? This is Stan Shipman, I said. Linda Calloway gave me your number and said I should call you this morning. Oh, yes, Mr. Shipman, she said. Linda told me some of what's been going on and I've been waiting for your call. Normally, I prefer the first meeting to be private, but I understand that's not possible this time. That's okay. In this day and age, we can do most of this online. Please tell me your story and don't leave anything out. I took some time to explain the situation, and she patiently listened to me. What are your expectations? She asked when I was done. I want as much as I can get, I said. No alimony and at least my share of our assets. I think we can do that, Bernice said. Your wife, who has criminal charges against her, should strengthen your case. However, I need to see your financial records. Do you own any property, a house, anything like that? No, we live in an apartment, I said. What about the lawsuit against Marie and Jake? She asked. Alienation of affection suits are allowed in this state, but I have to tell you that they usually don't go very far. You're probably better off suing for intentional infliction of mental anguish. Do what you think is right, I said. Okay, she said. I'll take a closer look at it and get into action. Do you have an email address? Yes, I do, I said. Good, she told me. I'll send you some documents. One is a contract for you to sign and return electronically. The other is a checklist of things to do. Take care of that for me, please. I also need you to pay in advance. Can you do that today? Yes, I said. Good. I'll send it all to you, and once it's done, I'll hand over the paperwork, she said. Any questions yet? No questions, I said. I gave her my email address, whereupon she transferred me to her assistant, who took down my credit card information. After talking on the phone, I turned on my laptop and checked my email. Sure enough, there was an email from Bernice with 2 documents attached. I opened the contract, electronically signed it, and sent it back with a receipt to make sure she received it. There was also a document advising me how to protect myself financially. Thank goodness for online banking, I thought. It took a while, but I was able to open a new account for myself and transfer half of our savings and checks into it. I paid off and canceled Lucy's credit card, but left mine open since I had just paid my fee with it. By the time I was all done, it was past noon, and Dave drove me to his store where he was working on a trailer for one of the farmers in the area. I worked with him for a while and found the activity somewhat relaxing. About 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we got a phone call. Dave picked up the phone, using an extension cord from his store, and handed the receiver to me. "It's your lawyer," he said. "It's Stan," I said, picking up the phone. "Stan, Linda Calloway here," she said. "Bad news. The judge set all of them minimum bail and released them." "How is that possible?" I asked. "He's probably on their payroll," she said. "Fortunately, the protective order is in effect, but I'm afraid it's no more use than the paper it's written on. Your best bet is to stay where you are. Stay out of town. The feds are keeping an eye on them for now, but I can't guarantee your safety." "Terrific," I said. "So what do we do now?" "Stay where you are," she said. "I'll do what I can on this side. Call me if you need anything, okay?" "Yeah, okay," I said. We ended the conversation, and I handed the phone back to Dave. "Bad news?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "The judge let them go." "Shit," he said. "I'd better call your folks and let them know." "I think that's a good idea," I said. "I should probably be the one to let them know." Dave nodded his head and handed the phone back to me. I dialed the number, and my dad answered on the second ring. "Dad, it's me, Stan," I said. "How are you doing, son?" he asked. "I'm doing fine," I replied. "I just wanted to let you know that the judge let Lucy and her friends go free. You might want to be on your guard. Something tells me they might pay you a visit to find out where I am." "Don't worry, son," he said. "We won't tell them anything. Are you still at John Harrison's?" The question surprised me, since he already knew where I was. John Harrison was a retired molder my father and I had worked for in the past. After retirement, he and his wife moved to a place about 2 hours south of town. And then it hit me. Lucy and her friends are probably there right now looking for me. I decided to play along with the ruse. "I'm actually at a motel about 50 miles south," I told him. "Okay," he said. "The important thing is that you're okay." "I'm fine," I said. "But I'll be leaving here in the morning. I'm planning on heading east. Just let me know where you are, okay, son?" he asked. "Yeah, sure," I said. "Can I talk to Mom?" "She's busy in the bathroom right now," Dad said. I listened carefully and thought I heard a noise in the background. "Okay," I said. "Tell her I'm okay and I love her." "I will, son," Dad said. I could hear the tension in his voice and prayed he was safe. "We'll talk soon, okay?" "Absolutely, Dad," I said. "Love you." "Love you too, son," he said before the call ended. I looked at Dave and made another call. "What's up, Stan?" said Linda, picking up the phone. "I think Lucy and her friends are at my parents' house," I told her. "Okay," she said. "I'll get a couple federal agents and head over there right away. Stay put." We ended the conversation, and I handed the phone back to Dave. "What's going on?" he asked. "I think Lucy and her buddies are at my parents' house trying to figure out where I am," I said. "Yeah, I heard what you told your dad," he said. "Do you think they'll buy that ruse?" "I hope so," I said. "At least for a few hours." I knew we had 6 to 8 hours at most if they headed south to John's house. "Maybe I'd better head out and find a place to hide until this is over." "No," Dave said. "You and I are in this together. You stay where you are. Let me clean up a little and I'll head into town, talk to the sheriff. Don't go anywhere, you hear me?" I nodded my head. A couple hours later, he left the house and headed into town. After he left, Linda called back. "Stan, you were right," she said. "Lucy, Marie, Jake, and a couple of their goons got there after the hearing. They tied up your folks and threatened them. They said they wouldn't give away your whereabouts. Now we've put out an APB on them. They left one of their thugs here and he's in custody now. Of course, he's not talking. Do you know where they are headed? I asked. No, I don't, but I don't think they bought your story, she said. Here, talk to your dad. A few seconds later, my dad was on the phone. Stan, I don't think they bought that ruse, he said. Are you guys okay? I asked. Yeah, we're fine right now, but I think Lucy and her friends are headed your way, he said. What makes you think that? I asked. I overheard Lucy talking, he said. Good, I said. Let Linda know to get the sheriff down here. I will, son, he said. Be careful, you hear? I will, Dad, I said. The next voice on the phone was Linda's. Where are you located? She asked. I told her where I was and gave her directions. Do you think Lucy knows where this is? She knows, I said. Good, Linda said. Stay where you are. We'll send someone there as fast as we can. We finished talking, and I headed toward the house. As I was leaving the store, I heard a familiar voice. It was Jake. Gee, he said. Thought you could outsmart us, huh? Nice try telling your parents you're going south when really you're up north. Lucky for us, Lucy knew that's where you were going. Now move, he added, waving the gun around. Get in, he said, pointing to a black SUV. I climbed into the back seat and saw Lucy looking at me with a smirk. Thought you could outsmart us, huh? She asked with a smirk. It's not going to end well for you, Lucy, I said. The cops will be here soon enough. Never mind, she said. It'll be too late for you. You should have just accepted the program. Now you're going to pay for it. Marie and Jake giggled. Jake told us to take them to a place along the creek bed at the bottom of the hill. When we got there... So you're planning to destroy me, right? I asked Lucy. She laughed. You know what they say. Dead men tell no tales, she said. Jake and Marie laughed. Why? I asked her. Why did you do that? She shrugged. What can I say? She asked rhetorically. He's richer than you. Besides, I don't want to be married to a welder for the rest of my life. I want the good life and Jake can give it to me. Are you two done reminiscing? Asked Jake. We have things to do and it's getting late. I'm sure you know what happens next, old boy, he said. Don't worry. Then I heard a rifle shot. And 2 more shots. Lucy looked around frightened and tried to take cover behind Jake. In the background, I heard the distinctive sound of a 4-wheeler and realized it was heading toward us. I tried to see who it was, but all I could see was a cloud of dust coming closer. Then it was upon us and I could see long blonde hair streaming behind the driver. I knew it was Beverly. She stopped the 4-wheeler and jumped off, holding a hunting rifle. Once free, I sat back and watched her run up to Lucy. Don't you dare touch my man again, yelled Beverly. Do you understand me? Lucy slowly nodded her head. Sirens howled in the distance, so Beverly walked over to the 4-wheeler and pulled out a flare gun. She pointed it into the sky and fired a flare to let the cops know where she was. Soon we saw flashing lights heading in our direction. Are you okay, honey? She asked, walking over to me. I am now, I replied. You saved my life. I'll never be able to repay you for that. Trust me, you'll have the rest of your life to make it up to me, she said with a smile. Soon we found ourselves surrounded by police cars. Dave pulled up in his truck and got out of it to check us out. One of the deputies called for an ambulance and a medical examiner. Are you okay? Asked Dave, coming up to us. I am now, thanks to Bev, I said. She saved my life. The sheriff took our statements and monitored the operation. By now, the ambulance had arrived and the paramedics were tending to Marie and Lucy. She destroyed Jake and Ronnie, Marie yelled. Aren't you going to arrest her? No, the sheriff said. This is Dave's property and the fortress doctrine applies here. Miss Brolin had every right to protect Mr. Shipman's life. Consider yourself lucky she didn't destroy you too. As I watched, the sheriff's deputies handcuffed Lucy and led her away. The sheriff informed me that he was charging her and Marie with attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. After the officers collected evidence and removed the bodies, we were released. I rode the quad bike with Beverly to the house. I thought you had class today, I said. What happened? Dave stopped by McDonald's and told me what happened, she said. I excused myself and came home. I had to make sure you were okay. I saw tire tracks in the grass and followed them to where you were, so I got in the deer stand I had set up. Well, you know the rest. When I saw what Jake was going to do, I just reacted. I'll catch up, don't worry. I'm not worried, I said. I'm grateful. More than you can imagine. I grabbed my phone and called Linda to let her know what had happened. She was relieved to hear that I was okay. They'll be where we need them after this, she said. Don't worry, the firm is going down and hard. I sure hope so, I said. Afterward, I called my parents to let them know what had happened. They, too, were happy to hear that things had ended well for us. Epilogue. Marie recovered from her wounds, and she and Lucy went to trial on charges of attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. They were found guilty and convicted on the charges related to my initial assault and unlawful detention. Both were given life sentences and faced more charges related to the conspiracy and racketeering of the firm. In all that time, I only saw them twice. Once when Bev and I were called to testify, and the second time when they were sentenced. Both times they looked like shit, and I couldn't help but smile. The bottom line was that neither of them would ever breathe free air again. And I couldn't have been happier. Meanwhile, Beatrice had secured a divorce and, because of Lucy's convictions, convinced the judge not to give her anything. She also secured a large payout to Marie and Jake's inheritance. By the time she was done, I was in the money. Yes, Bernice got some of it, but I was very happy with my share. The firm also got a very large sum as the partners defended themselves against numerous federal charges, including racketeering and charges related to the mysterious deaths of 2 other men. By the time all was said and done, the firm was forced to close up store, and the partners found themselves behind bars for life. All of this happened over the course of about 6 months. By the time it was over, I had more than enough money for Beverly and I to live on for years to come. I bought her a beautiful ring and proposed to her in a dignified way, getting down on one knee. She squealed and showered me with kisses. A month or so later, we were married and spent a week in Las Vegas. When we got back, we sat Dave down in the living room and proposed to him. His eyes widened when we suggested we start a company called D&S Welding and Custom Fabrications. Are you serious? He asked us. Hell yeah, I replied. Beverly pulled out her spreadsheet and showed him the business plan she had drawn up. After studying it carefully, he leaned back in his chair. You know, I think this could work, he said. By the way, I almost forgot, he added, and reached into his pocket. He pulled out a bunch of keys and held them out to us. You know that lot on the south side? Yes, Beverly replied. What's there? Did you see the new 2-bedroom house on it? He asked. Yes, she answered. We thought you had sold that lot. No, he said. It's your wedding present. From me and your parents, he added, looking at me. It's brand new and equipped with all the latest advances. By the way, the plot and the house are registered in your name. Your dad and I have already moved your stuff from your apartment there, except for the stuff with Lucy's picture on it, of course. Wow, I said. I don't even know what to say. Sure, I could afford a custom-built house, but a 2-bedroom house was nice and just as sturdy as a log home. I certainly wasn't going to look a gift horse in the mouth. I knew this place had to cost them well over $150,000. Say thanks, partner, he said, holding out his hand. I smiled and took his hand. We found ourselves in a manly bear hug. Would you mind if we went down there? Asked Beverly. I'd hate to see you alone. I'll be fine, he said. Besides, I'll finally be able to get a decent night's sleep. I'm getting tired of listening to you moan all night long. We celebrated that night, and I called my parents to thank them for the gift. Later that evening, Beverly and I christened the master bedroom. Yes, I thought, lying in each other's arms. Things are shaping up just right. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.